and the rest is made up of e-commerce services. We took a business that was earning approximately $1 billion of income in 2010, and my management team, by focusing on this area of e-commerce, has now grown the parcels business to well in excess of $3.5 billion. What does it mean for you, though, the customer, the consumer? You would have seen the big changes as it affected you. For example, we've installed 24/7 parcel lockers in 230 locations. We deliver 2 out of every 3 packets and parcels that are bought online. We acquired the other 50% of Star Trek from Qantas. We've doubled the size of our parcel processing centres in both Sydney and in Melbourne. And we've equipped all our posties with handheld scanners and the ability to track and monitor your parcels. There was a lot of strategic thinking behind these initiatives, but I have to say that there was also a lot of hard work just simply implementing what was obvious. Throughout my career, I've spent a lot of time trying to distill what I think are fundamental aspects of business success into a very simple, easy to understand approach that we can allow us to transform and implement successfully. And if I reflect on those last 10 to 12 years across those 2 organizations that I was CEO over, I would offer you humbly 4 points of what I consider to be the secret to success in running a big business. They seem simple, these points, but they have been essentially the guidebook for me. 1, if you're going to run a business, make sure you've got talented people working with you. 2, once you have these talented people, you have to make sure that you have the right behaviours in that business or in that organisation. Behaviours is much spoken about, but I believe undervalued. It is the software that drives successful businesses. The culture and the behaviours that you role model as leaders is what the organisation will do. If you really care about customers, for example, then that is a very important behaviour that you want the rest of your team to follow. You must role model this behaviour. Number 3, have a clear strategy and a clear plan of action that you communicate. No good having the best strategy in the world if you can't communicate it to every single person. And if you want to test your strategy, if you want to test how well you communicate, this is what I do. I sometimes drive out at Dandenong, where we have our big letters processing centre, or out to Footscray, where we have our parcel centre. I go out to some delivery centres across the country, and I walk around. I don't tell people I'm coming, and I talk to the employees, just anybody at any level in the company, and I ask them questions. What are we trying to do at Australia Post? What's important for us? What's our plan? And if they can't tell me, in essence, what our plan is, then this is not a very good plan, or you have not communicated it very effectively. You need everybody to understand your plan. And then last but not least, you need the organisation underpinned by good systems and good processes. Don't leave it to chance. Don't leave it to people just to figure it out. Help them understand and support them with appropriate tools and infrastructure, processes and systems to allow them to do their job and to do it well. To me, These 4 leadership principles I hold dear. They are principles that I constantly refer to, and I don't think it matters whether you're running a business here in Melbourne or in Mumbai. If you have those 4 elements right, then your business will be successful. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the beginning of my speech, I want to take this opportunity to make my own rallying call to you, the Indian Australian business community. In doing so, I want to selectively quote our nation's 2 leaders, Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull and Narendra Modi. In the 2 months since Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull has been elected as the leader, you would have noticed a couple of things, but one of those is that he's very fond of saying the following quote, and I quote, "There's never been a better time to be an Australian." And the funny thing is, it seems to have done the trick. It's become almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. Suddenly, in 2 months, consumer confidence is up, businesses are investing again, Australia's unemployment rate is beginning to fall, and people just feel better about where we are. The Consul General and I were just commenting on that, how remarkable one man has changed the mood of a nation. If our Prime Minister was here tonight, I think he would express the same optimistic sentiment, but with one twist. I think he would say, "There's never been a better time to be an Indian Australian." And I have absolutely no doubt that that's true. The economic growth opportunities for India, Australia, and our region are enormous. In his white paper on Australia in the Asian century, Ken Henry predicted that by 2025, half of the world's economic activity will take place here in the Asian region. And in terms of powering economic growth of our region, all of the important activity, of course, is going to be centered around China and India. India is now clearly the world's 2nd fastest growing economy. In my lifetime, India has already lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. It's estimated that around 200 million Indians have entered the middle class in the past decade. Just stop and think about that number. 200 million Indians are now considered to be middle class. And a further 300 million Indians will be classified as middle class by 2025. That's only a decade from now. And this is, no question, an economic miracle. India will be a nation transformed. And before we know it, India will be one of the world's most important consumer economies. It highlights the fact that the global economy right now is at a significant pivot point. And if the past century was all about the world learning how to serve, this is quite important. For the past 100 years, the world was learning how to serve the industrialized West. Then this century coming is going to be about the world learning the customs, the practices, and the languages required to serve Asia, and in particularly China and India. This week, thank you. This week marks a year since Mr. Modi's visit to Australia and his famous address to the joint sitting of our federal parliament. Of course, these type of set pieces of political speeches are both in themselves interesting, but they are also part of polite diplomacy. And there was, though, in my opinion, a genuine warmth to Mr. Modi's speech and a real optimism about the future prospects for an Indian-Australian relationships. So I want to remind you of a couple of quotes from that speech on that day. The Prime Minister Modi said then, and I quote, "I see Australia as a partner in every area of national priority. Much of India's future cities and infrastructure is yet to be built. And so we have a unique opportunity to make our choices today. And in every sector, agriculture, food processing, mining, infrastructure, manufacturing, finance and technology, and energy, from providing funds and resources to technology and expertise, working as partners and investors, Australia has an immense opportunity to participate in India's progress. In turn, India will be the answer to your search for new economic opportunities and your desire to diversify your global economic arrangements. Your source for world-class skills at home or for a manufacturing location abroad." This is a very powerful language and speech delivered by the Prime Minister. If I had the good fortune of having Indian heritage, Australian nationality, and an entrepreneurial speak, I would see this as a massive opportunity. We are incredibly fortunate to be living in an era where anyone with a great idea can take that idea and sell it to the world. Startup businesses today are no longer constrained by geography. Innovative startups are launching their services globally to literally billions of consumers. Just think, 10 years ago, nobody heard of Facebook, Twitter, Uber, Airbnb, Spotify. 10 years ago, they did not exist. As this digital economy keeps developing and we progress further into the Asian century, our world will become increasingly borderless. So anyone with cross-cultural understandings, and that is mostly you here tonight, and multinational networks is going to have a competitive advantage. Looking around this room, I am sure that, just like me, many of you have spent your lives straddling at least two cultures. That puts you in a powerful position. Your difference is your strength. Your understanding of more than a monoculture is your strength. Don't ever forget that. It gives you the ability to build bridges between nations, and cross-border e-commerce, cross-border commerce is the single largest business opportunity in the world today. And it means that you can position yourself at the heart of this growing economic opportunity